Red flags are always things like, well, I could have done it myself, but I didn't have time. Or I know that so-and-so could do it for a cheaper rate, but I really just wanted to. I mean, these are all, it's like out the gate, they're not valuing what you're bringing to the table. You can still work with these people, but we need to be mindful of this because these are also going to be people that are likely going to need more hand-holding. They're going to ask more questions. They're going to be harder on you with boundaries, and you're going to have to really set those out the gate. So the people that are going to push back some deposits, they're going to say, no, I don't think that's fair. They're going to want discounts. They're going to want to finalize pricing at a later date. They're going to ignore your scope in general or your timelines. And I just think that there's a good gut check on like sometimes how someone treats the money at the beginning is how they're going to treat it the whole way through.
You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 192 of Design Curious Podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Lauren Nist. She is one of the founding partners of Magnolia and Maine, which is a virtual bookkeeping and advisory firm that helps small business owners understand their numbers with clarity and confidence. She has spent years supporting creative and service-based businesses behind the scenes and has watched companies grow from $900K to more than $3 million simply by tightening their pricing, billing systems, and job costing. Lauren brings a warm, friendly, judgment-free approach to finances, making the money side feel clear and doable so owners can bill ahead, protect their cash flow, and make confident decisions that support the business they want to build. I really enjoyed speaking with Lauren. I love her approach to accounting. It's really different. So let's talk with her and you can discover that too. Hi, Lauren. Welcome to Design Curious Podcast. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, very important topic, talking about accounting for creatives, which is always a challenge, I think.
Yeah,
but first,
I agree.
Let's start with how you got into working with creatives and doing accounting with them in the first place.
Yeah, so I was a psych major, which is so random. And then I started working for just a remodeling and design firm, just doing day-to-day bookkeeping, and that kind of grew. And then when I left, I started doing I was probably there, it was over a decade.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, this realm is my favorite. But when I left, I wanted to kind of grow and work with a lot more different types of small businesses. And so I started working for a virtual firm, which put me working with everything from jewelry designers to more interior designers to concierge like physicians and stuff. And so then that firm continued to grow and do great things. And I think then I just kind of had the moment of like, I really just want to get back to this small group again and just the beginners and then just the small businesses. And so my business partner and I broke out and we started our own firm. That's kind of where we are now.
Wow. And how many years ago was that?
So we just started our own firm this last year. So
okay.
25. Yeah.
Nice. Great. Yeah. Good. And so your focus now is for the interior design industry?
So interior design definitely plays a hand in what we do. Currently, I have over 30 clients on a virtual level, and that's split between me and my business partner. And then we have a couple employees that work with us too. But interior design, small contractors, just the labor field in general too, all trades and stuff are my favorite because they fall into a weird kind of place where they need that help, yet they're not really ready to bring on anybody in-house. And so how we can help them get that kind of financial, like just the financial foundation kind of established and stuff. And so they have a process, really.
That's great. Yeah. Because a lot of people starting out don't know how to create a process or what they need to do yet, right?
Yeah. I cannot tell you how often people say, "Oh, I'm not good at numbers," or "This is not, I'm terrible at this." And it's like, it's not your lane. Nobody expects you to be good at this. This isn't what you started your business for. It just happens to be a piece of your business. And so, you kind of have to get yourself in touch with the people that is their lane, and then figure out how to make that part of your business function for you, and what works best for you in that situation.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So you have a lot of experience working with creatives. And so why don't we get into some of the more common money mistakes that creatives can make that might hurt their cash flow and just get them off on the wrong foot?
Yeah. So I think for me, one of the things that I love working with creatives probably the most is because they think in kind of the vision headspace. So like they're constantly thinking in the place of like finished spaces and the experience and how things are going to feel when it's done. But the challenge is that they often treat money as it's a result of the work versus something that needs structure along the way. And so with that mindset, you're already setting yourself up to complicate things. And little things like money having no order in the way in which you handle it. They think, I'll get paid, we'll pay things as they go, and we just kind of hope that there's money left at the end. And so profit becomes more of a surprise versus a plan. And then the assumption too that we're just floating the cost, that's just part of the process. That's just how we're ordering, sourcing, moving projects forward becomes what we think is like the norm, when in actuality, you're functioning as a bank. Another huge one for me would just be reactive discounting. I think anytime too, when a client gets hesitant or you're tight on cash, you feel that need to kind of drop things to keep things moving and discount to keep things moving, but you don't have any idea at that point what your margin even is to know how much you can cut back. And so all of these things play into keeping us up at night and making it to where we don't know where we stand with our own money. So we don't even know what we could take at the end of the day, which is a scary feeling within itself. And so we shift into that mindset of, well, more work means more profit. And so we just have to work more, work more, work more. And then now we're in a cycle.
Yeah. So what would you recommend then for someone to start to build kind of a framework around their finances and how they're estimating jobs and billing and all of those things, like without having any background probably in accounting? Most people are like, I don't know where to start, So do you have some guidelines that you could share around this?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is first we start looking at money as you would or any other project. So there's an order to it. So we have to first bill ahead for whatever we're going to buy, source, things like that. We need to get a deposit. That's fair. We're not the bank. There's lenders in place for a reason, and it's not you. And then the next thing is we pay the business for what the business spent. What did those materials cost you? What did that labor to outsource getting something upholstered cost you? What does all that look like? Get that paid. And then whatever's left at the end of the month, we have to be intentional in how we split it. We have to give that money a job. So even if you just go, there's a simple rule of like 30, 10, 60. And this doesn't have to be exact. It's not going to be perfect for everybody, but it's just a thought. So if you get paid ahead, you pay the business what the business spent. Right there, we should have money left over. If there's not, we didn't do our job right to begin with. But then when what's left, you put aside 30% of that for your taxes. You put aside 10% of that for just a buffer for the business, and you pay yourself the remaining 60. If that feels shaky or scary, we shift it around. We maybe buffer 20%, pay ourselves 40. But at this point, we've created a system that makes things start becoming more sustainable. And then we can go from there and tweak it to fit the needs best. But at least we have a game plan for the money. And that gives you a starting point.
Yeah, I like that you can kind of put some percentages on there, and it helps someone see that, like, okay, if I am getting 60% of what's left over, is that paying me enough? You know?
Right. Right. And I mean, let's be honest, everybody, their first couple of jobs, that's the real gut kick. Like that's the thing that hurts your feelings because you're like, whoa, I didn't make anything. And there's going to be months where there's going to be nothing left and you have nothing to split up. And, and so that's where then you start having to say, okay, well, then now we have to start looking at my job pricing and what are these jobs costing me? And that becomes the next layer, really.
Yeah. So you touched on earlier how a lot of times we'll respond emotionally to maybe a client and, discount our services or things like that. Do you have advice that you generally give out for maybe designers specifically on how they should cost their jobs and plan on making a profit and things like that?
Yeah. So I think number one is billing ahead. Always. Okay. I mean, I'm going to say out the gate, you're not the bank. We don't need to think we're the bank. We don't need to act as the bank. And if you're fronting money, you're putting yourself at a financial risk because here's things we see that happens is that somebody says, oh yeah, I'm going to start this kitchen remodel and it's October. And so you order all this stuff and then they're like, well, let's wait because Thanksgiving's coming up. And so I want to, and you're stuck holding something. So if that happens and you would have billed them for all of that, you're like, no problem. Well, all that stuff can be delivered and sit in your garage so you're ready to work again. And
right.
So then that protects your risk of your money, because if not, we would have put ourselves out for that. And then we're at risk of that client ghosting us and we're out money on vendors, we're out money on sourcing, things of that nature. But then also by billing ahead, we keep the business, the project itself moving. But then we start knowing is when we go back to earlier with like, okay, well, here's what we build and we're going to take away what the business need to pay all that stuff. If there's differences there, if you didn't bill enough, it should be an immediate pause for you to say, let me check, because we know clients add things. That's one of the best ways in which you add more money or can catch money. But you have to make it to where it's part of your system to catch that. So that becomes a red flag that you can catch. So we can start spotting scope creep and stuff at that time. And so for me, yeah, billing ahead, always a huge thing. Creating a clear scope and giving that to your client. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to have this pretty stuff. I know as creatives and as designers, you're so caught up in that part.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it just needs to be clear so that when they do go outside of that, you've left yourself room to add in something extra. And normally they're all for it because by this point in the game, they're seeing your vision come to life and they want to expand on it. And what is another 5 or 10 grand more when they're already out 50, 60, even 10 or 15, another 2 or 3 grand, is not that big of a deal to help as they're seeing this vision come to life and upgrade this or whatever. So we've set our, billing ahead gives us that path to be able to reduce that financial stress, but also it can create a calm for us because we know where that job is at any given time. And we can jump in and stay on top of it a little bit better. So yeah, number one for me is always billing ahead. And then 2, it's staying on top of knowing where that project is. And when the job is done, reviewing it, where you had your wins and where you had your failures. And we're all going to have those. That happens in every industry. And so giving yourself these tools, then we've created it to where we can educate our client to come the next time. If they're hesitant on your costing, we now, instead of knocking ourselves on what we're worth, we can defend it. Well, it's in my experience, I've seen that this and this and this run about this, and they take longer to come in, or they have a higher quality shelf life, or they, whatever it might be. So you've created a way to circumvent that situation with the client. We're going to educate the client versus emotionally respond in those moments.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about reviewing the job at the end and, making sure that this was a job that you want to do again. Like you want to ask for a referral.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not. Like there probably are some red flags that you would immediately say, like, we don't want this kind of job again. What would you identify as maybe some of those red flags?
Yeah. So I think that there's red flags within your clients and then there's red flags within your job types. The biggest thing I tell people all the time in any of my advisory sessions when it comes to clients is you have an ideal client. The first thing you should do is be okay with that idea and know that I think as small business owners, and I deal with this exact same thing, and I'm not even in the same industry, but you, especially early on, feel this into like, who am I to decline a job? Like, as if the job gods are going to come down and be like, you said no, you are too good for this, you shall not get any more. And so we feel this need to like constantly be like, yes, I'll take this. Yes, I'll take this. When they out the gate are doing things that is setting the tone in a wrong way for you. And so I think one, knowing that it's okay to not take it is no is a complete sentence. And I think that that is in every aspect of your life, but especially in business. It's okay not to take a job. And when your ideal client is going to be somebody that's going to respect that you need a deposit, they're going to be thoughtful about their questions, but they're going to trust that you have an expertise that you bring to the table here and not undermine that. For me personally, red flags are always things like, well, I could have done it myself, but I didn't have time. Or I know that so-and-so could do it for a cheaper rate, but I really just wanted to. I mean, these are all, it's like out the gate, they're not valuing what you're bringing to the table. You can still work with these people, but we need to be mindful of this because these are also going to be people that are likely going to need more hand holding. They're going to ask more questions. They're going to be harder on you with boundaries, and you're going to have to really set those out the gate. So the people that are going to push back some deposits, they're going to say, no, I don't think that's fair. They're going to want discounts. They're going to want to finalize pricing at a later date. They're going to ignore your scope in general or your timelines. And these are, I just think that there's a good gut check on like sometimes how someone treats the money at the beginning is how they're going to treat it the whole way through.
That's a good point.
And at the end of the day, you love what you do. That's the perk to doing what you love, but you're here to make money. You're also here to have a life outside of your business. And so these boundaries, texting you at random times to ask you stuff or wanting to nickel and dime you over the simplest things or not pay for extra things that you know is going to give you the longevity of the product or things like that. These are just, it's not worth, these are also the people that are not going to be happy in the end and are going to leave you the bad review. So they're going to have sucked up your time, your resources, your energy, and quite possibly damaged your brand. And so I think there's so much power in knowing your ideal client, but more specifically, knowing who isn't your ideal client and taking that as a red flag and being okay with walking away. I'm guilty of this next thing too, but sometimes too, we want to just throw a really high number at it and hope that it goes away. And the worst thing is when they're like, cool, see you Wednesday. And then you're like, and no, we work together. So,
like it's still not worth it. Even if they had that huge number.
Yeah. So I think too, there's that, like, just be careful because you may still throw a number at it and it's still not worth what it's taking from you energy, mentally, and resource wise. So yeah, ideal clients, red flags there. But then jobs. So I think that with jobs, we fall into the realm of, and this to me happens in every single business, but you have different sweet spots amongst your jobs, right? It's not about charging more makes more money. And I think that's a huge misconception coming in. There's so many layers to this, but there's this place where like efficiency and complexity kind of live in a harmony. So oftentimes you have your projects that are like, I'm just going to throw random numbers out there, like $15,000 to $25,000. And they've got a clear scope. They've got faster decisions. You're in and you're out faster. And maybe these are like a Jack and Jill bathroom or something like that, or just things that are faster turnarounds, right? Mm-hmm. So they're often very profitable. But then you may jump to like a $26,000 to $50,000 project, and they come with more complexity. This is for your average client. Either this is the top of their scale. So this money is huge to them, as it should be. I mean, it is, all of this is a lot of money, but their expectations are higher. And so your margins are often tighter. And these are the people watching you the most closely. So these take more hand holding and things like that. So your sweet spot here, your profitability is going to drop down. But then you may move up, and it may be that for you, then you'd go to 51 to 100K plus projects. And now we're back being profitable because we're priced more intentionally. There's room for management costs. There's room for coordination costs. There's room for systems. So our profitability peaks back up again. So, and then you add into here too, like the resources that are constantly moving in and out, and your resources and the hand holding. And so the goal for those to me are knowing where your sweet spots are and where your creativity and your capacity and your profit kind of all align. And odds are you're going to be doing a little bit of all this. And like, listen, odds are you just need it for your portfolio too, right? So nobody's going to pay a whole lot of attention to your Instagram if it's constantly a half bath or a Jack and Jill bathroom or a kid's bathroom. You know what I'm saying? They're going to want to see huge kitchens and pretty kitchens. They're going to want to see really moody, beautiful studies. They're going to want to see all of these huge transformations. You're going to need that. But two, I think from a creative level, those are your favorites anyway. Like you want to do those, and you should do those. It's just about knowing that balance in there. And that's to me where it all comes back to looking at that cost of these jobs and how these jobs fared after the fact. So it may be too that you can still take on that type of job again, but maybe we can't do two of them at the same time. Maybe we need to mix it with one on one level and one on the other level so that the efficiency can still exist together, but our profitability. So you're still feeding that artist's brain and doing the things you love while still making the money you need and keeping the clients happy all at the same time. So it's so many layers to that. But then again, it's not that hard to do. People think job costing has to really be these fancy like spreadsheets, and it really doesn't. It's just what you spent, what you build, what's left, you know? And then if it's not, we know you can Google. I mean, industry standards should be, they say gross profit like 35 to 55. I'd love to meet the people making 55% gross profit. I know none. So I think that 35 is totally a healthy goal. To achieve that is a remarkable feat within itself. But like knowing too, not only that, but like, what do you need to make? So making what you're wanting to make as part of once again, it goes back to when I'm wanting to, okay, if we're not taking out of that 60% what we want to take home, then what do we need to take home? Well, let's add that into the cost of these jobs. And then is that possible? You know, are we making that? And if not, what needs to change? So it's not, these are really simple framework. It's just a matter of the mindset of looking at this part, and you're creating this data anyway. It's just reviewing it. I mean, the job's going to cost you what it's going to cost you, regardless if you look at it or you don't, you know? So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a really good point, because I like thinking about how, you know, analyzing that maybe those ones that cost you more in your focus and attention in the middle, like spacing those out, it would be really smart. And, you know, maybe for those types of jobs, recognizing that and then having a wait list for like, those ones. Like, it doesn't mean you have to say no if you still enjoy doing them, but not like having 5 going at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And two, building in like management fees and stuff. I mean, if you know they're going to take more hand holding, then build that into your costing when you're pricing it, add in more of that stuff. So you have more wiggle room there, that you know that this is somebody you're going to have to show them they're not going to take just one sample of her, and you just be like, this is my favorite. And then be like, cool. They're going to want to see 3 to 5, and so what is that going to look like for you as far as sourcing products and things like that? And but yeah, I think just being mindful of the time it's going to take you to do it and realistic of what you have as far as your capacity, because it's not work more, make more. It really is. I wouldn't call it a science behind it, but there's data behind it things fall the way they fall for a reason. And all you have to do is just look at your own numbers. They're not scary. They're just numbers. And it's not a complicated science. It's just knowing what to look at and then just seeing the trends, because the trends are going to fall into place anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what are some habits that maybe these small business owners can do to help stay profitable so that they're not like constantly stressing and looking at numbers and just like make sure I'm meeting all my costs here? Like what are some good things for them to do?
Yeah. So I think that one, it's reviewing your numbers monthly. I think that people tend to shy away from doing that because that feels, one, like it might hurt their feelings, or two, daunting. And so I think that we need to think of it like, no. I like to think of it as it's like Fisher Price easy, in the sense that you can make it as simple as it needs to be. It doesn't have to be, even as much as I love like QuickBooks and stuff like that, you don't have to have all that. You don't have to have huge Excel spreadsheets. You can just have a simple, I built them this, I spent this is what overhead costs me. This is what's left. Okay. And then, kind of go from there. But just looking at it is the first step. Two, like checking to make sure that we're checking in on where we are with money and how that's aligning to where what we've got coming up, maybe not even in a 60-day window, but maybe just a 30-day window. Like what are we needing for this? What are big costs that we have on a personal level that's coming up that we can't skip paying ourselves? So what does it need to look like? And then just making sure we're billing ahead and making sure that we're billing for things that fell out of scope. And here's the thing. If you're going to give it away, by gosh, acknowledge that you gave it away. Send them some type of invoice that says, we did this for free. You know what I'm saying? That this was worth $400 less courtesy discount of $400, because they're going to remember that. And that might be the piece that sells you the next job with them, or that gets them to talk to their neighbor when they're having a glass of wine on their porch, wondering on weekend about it. And so just knowing, because there's nothing wrong with that. If you're like, well, I just went ahead and did something because I was here already or whatever, but they're not mind readers. They don't know that. So putting all that out there. But then if we're just giving our profit a plan, if we're just splitting things up intentionally with what's left, we've kind of got a game plan in mind. So we've got these safety nets that are kind of guardrailing a little bit for us. And so we stop being as reactive. And I think with that comes the calm. So then we're not stressing as much. We know where we stand. And sometimes knowing where you stand, even if it's not as pretty as you'd like it to be, is still a calming feeling versus the unknown. But then, really, I think that if you can come up with simple ways to create some type of pricing and expectations and fees out the gate, that clarity is going to create that calm for you later on too.
Yeah. So you definitely have, honed in like billing ahead. So that would be not just for product, but as well as for fees. How do creatives make sure that they're charging enough, first of all, ahead of time, like they're doing a flat fee? And then how do they make sure that their cash flow is working? Or what if they this job is taking longer than they expected,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that one of the things that I see creatives give away out probably more than anything is their drawings and stuff out the gate. So you spend so much time, you go out, you look at these jobs, you draw up something, you give them really pretty things, and then oftentimes they'll sit on it for a long period of time. So to me, a design fee itself is worth it. It pays for your time to do that. You can always, if you want to, offer to credit it back if you convert it into a job. But bottom line is the cost for you doesn't start once you start purchasing materials. It starts once you pick up the phone or respond to an email.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to shift the mindset there of how do we start making money at that point? But when we start doing these drawings and when we give that pretty package to them, that package should make it pretty, make the whole mood board, everything beautiful, but let that come at a price point itself, whether that be $2,000, $700, whatever you think. And then if you think that you're going to get, because I mean, the bottom line is sometimes they do take a while. Sometimes this pretty picture has to sit here and it takes somebody a while to either come up with the funds to make it happen or to talk their spouse into it or to, like whatever it might be. So making sure you're getting paid out the gate. We're billing for what we've done. And then our payments and all need to be tied to the scope. And we need to know that we're tying it to progress. So as it's moving, we're on to the next thing. As we get close to this bill will go out. If we get close to this, whatever that might look like, even if that's 50% up front and then 25 and 25. And I never really like to see anybody hold a lot of people are like, well, I'll save the last 25% till we're done. 25% is a lot of money. Like, and then you're talking, they're going to walk around with blue tape and inspect paint, or they're going to, look an entire piece of furniture up and down for anything. We're holding up most of the time, that's more than what you're going to make, especially in the early years in profit. And so I say we try to get that number down to like 5% at the end. And let's bill all the way up to that, because that's more realistic of like, if that's your profit, then that will hold off on that part. But the rest of this is just fees and pricing of doing the job. And that's different. So when we set up those schedules, let's be realistic on what we can actually afford to hold off on. Because when you give them that option to hold off until final sign off or whatever, walk through, whatever you do, they're going to do it. And you're on their schedule at that point, not yours any longer. So you're out of control of your own money at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. All of these conversations that we've been having today, it like makes me think back to my first few years in business and all the things I did wrong. And like I was out money for a long time until they said like, okay, it's finally done. And then like, here's the remaining.
But I think that's everybody though. Cause you just you don't think in that moment that you're like, well, that seems fair. If I take 50 and then 25 and 25, you're like, all right, seems good enough to me. And then you're like, wait a minute, 20, like I'm held up for one tile that may have cracked or something. And I'm out, a good chunk. It's a lot. That's impactful. So yeah.
Very good advice. Well, let's talk a little bit about Magnolia and Maine and what kind of services that you provide if someone's interested in working with you.
Yeah, we actually do bookkeeping and advisory for small businesses. And we take it all the way down to just super small, where you might be just needing somebody just to even at the end of the year come in and clean up your books to get it tax ready for you. Or we on a monthly level where we're just going in and reconciling everything and categorizing things for you. And the one thing that was really big on for me when we started this was that I had this idea in my head that it would be like this, like porch talk. So we would do our books every month and we would send it to the person. But then that's just these fancy forms, right? And so for most business owners, it doesn't mean anything. And it's intimidating to get this packet full of financials. So this was something that I pushed very hard for us to be able to do. we offer advisory calls after you get your financials every month so that we can sit down and we can just talk through, what does this mean? What am I seeing when I look at this? What do you see when you look at this?
Mm-hmm.
What are things in which maybe reflected on here, may not, but feel big, like debt payment or paying ourselves or saving for something that we're trying to get? Or I had a client one time that her biggest thing was just that she wanted to just get a car through her business herself and it not have to be anything to do with her husband. And so we just started chipping away at getting her to that place. And I mean, so I think that just having that kind of one-on-one space of reflecting for us is really important. So it's the bookkeeping side, but then it's also the just like feeling like you have a partner, like you can have this just like sitting on the porch, having a conversation with a friend that just happens to know a lot about the finance side of things. And you can just kind of just talk through where you're just given not only grace, because I think that's one thing business owners lack in giving themselves 24/7 is the grace of, they feel like they should be perfect at every aspect of a business. And that's just not the case, because that's not, every aspect is a different type of business. And so getting somebody to give you that support, that grace, but also just the honesty. And sometimes the honesty is not the fun part. And so we want you to feel confident, but not judged. And I think that for me, I wanted to set up a place where we could work with people, whether it be $400 a month or $2,000 a month. But at the end of the day, you would have numbers that would feel supportive and not scary. Because I think that for every business owner, that is the key walkaway, is that you've got a great set of tools in your numbers if you just use them. And so helping people see that you can use them, that they're not scary, foreign, scientific things, and think of it more of like Fisher Price easy. Like this is just, it's just basic math. We just need to learn how to use it as a tool.
I love that. That's a great, gentle approach for a lot of people who might even have, money baggage and coming into it too. Just like, I can't talk about numbers, but that you have it framed as like a, sitting on the porch type of a conversation. It's really approachable. And I think that might be, something that is desirable, especially for a lot of women-owned businesses. Be intimidated by numbers. So
yeah. And I think too, people just forget that debt is a tool. You use money as a tool to get you from point A to point B, and there's no shame in that. It's just kind of giving it. So once again, it's another set of number, which we just got to give it a game plan, and we can get ourselves right back out of it. It may be a longer plan than other things, but that's okay too, because it's a tool to get you where you are. No shame in that. So that for us is the biggest thing. It's just, we just want you to feel like you've got a sounding board and a safe place to land.
Love that. Well, thank you for doing that, Lauren. And we're going to put your contact information in the show notes so people can reach out to you and they want to work with you or just have a conversation. Thank you for coming on today and sharing your insights with bookkeeping and making the numbers less scary.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me and for putting this out there to help others find it. So,
yeah, my pleasure. So go ahead and reach out to Lauren if you'd love to work with them. I've already recommended them to some boot campers from last winter's boot camp because they have an offering that is perfect for if you're just setting up your business, which is to like set up your QuickBooks and then kind of let you take over the day-to-day stuff, right? But you need to make sure your accounts are all set up properly so then you can export reports and all the things that you need to do. Because if you just get QuickBooks online, like it's not set up for a design business. It's just like standard stuff and you have no idea what accounts to put in there and what to categorize things as. And so that's where you need the professional to come in and they just have that one-time setup. And maybe you want to work with them more afterwards, but the one-time setup is perfect for setting up your business at the very beginning. So check that offering out. And then also, boot camp is almost here and the doors are opening soon. If you're thinking about starting your own interior design business, I would love to have you join us. It's such a great way to start your business, You get to go through all the things that you need to do. You're not forgetting anything. It's all set up within 8 weeks so that you can start taking on your own clients this fall. I'd love to have you in there. And we also have a webinar that's going to be happening in June. We have June 10th, June 24th. So there's going to be a link for you to sign up for those webinars. And the webinar is going to help you decide if you want to sign up for bootcamp, because it's called, Are You Ready to Start Your Interior Design Business? And how much does it cost to start a business, right? It's that everyone needs to know that if you're thinking about it. So come attend this free webinar, June 10th. I'd love to have you there. But if you already know you're ready to start your business, then sign up for bootcamp. And links are in the show notes. I'd love to have you. All right, that's all for this week. Next week, we'll have another great episode. And until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.